Hi, so this is my entry for the retrofair. Before making this, I decided to sit down and think, what's my favourite gaming or retro computer system? And I went through a lot of options. Do I pick my first ever PC, the IBM PS2? Or maybe my beloved Macintosh Plus? But in the end, the thing that had the most impact on me, and I probably still hold the most affection today, is my Game Boy. It's a pretty common choice, I'm sure, and I'm sure a lot of people will say it's their favourite. But for me, it was the first ever system that was truly mine, and it still means quite a lot to me today. So I think I got my Game Boy in around 1993, and if you live in the UK and if you're of a certain age, you might have heard of something called Tiger tokens. These were vouchers given away by Esso garages, and the idea was, when you fill up petrol, you get these vouchers, you collect up enough, you can spend them on items from their catalogue. And I remember looking through the catalogue when I was a child, and seeing the absolute pinnacle item in there, the Game Boy. And lucky enough for me, my dad drove a lot, so we managed to collect up a load of vouchers, and even more lucky for me, I managed to convince him to spend them all on this Game Boy. So if somehow you don't know, the Game Boy is an 8-bit handheld system by Nintendo R&D 1 and famed designer Gunpei Yokoi. And released in Japan on the 21st of April 1989, selling over 118 million units. It was a clear winner in the early handheld wars, despite its relatively underpowered hardware. Many may consider the Game Boy just a toy, but its roots are firmly in computer history, running on a Sharp LR35902, which is a hybrid of the Intel 8080 and the Zlog Z80, two of the most influential processors of early computing. The 8080 began the personal computer revolution, being used in things like the Altair 8800, a machine at both the heart of Apple and Microsoft's beginnings. And the Z80, which is binary compatible to the 8080, and was even designed by the same man, physicist Federico Fagan. At least that's how I think he said it. It was one of the most prolific 8-bit processors, competing alongside the MOS 6502, and it found its uses in devices such as the Amstrad CPC, the TRS-80, and the ZX Spectrum, as well as the Mega Drive and the Game Gear. And even today it can be found in Texas Instruments line of graphics calculators. Like with many successful hardware releases, there were a number of revisions, starting in 1995 with the Play It Loud series, which was the same hardware, just in different coloured cases, but the most famous of which probably being the transparent X-ray version. This was then followed in 1996 with the Game Boy Pocket, boasting a thinner design and only requiring 2 AAA batteries rather than the original's 4 AA's. It also came with a much improved screen. Not only was it bigger, it did away with the green hues for a black and white, crisper design, and improved pixel response, removed some of the ghosting found in the original. And then 1998 rolled around, and with it, Nintendo released the Japanese exclusive, the Gameboy Lights. It resembled the Game Boy Pocket in many ways, but came with probably the most sought after feature, an electroluminescent backlight. Until this point, the Game Boy's lack of backlight was one of its worst features, and trying to see the screen in most light levels often posed slightly difficult. And while Japan now had this Game Boy Light, the rest of us in the world were stuck using one of these. And only a few months later, the Game Boy Color was released, bringing with it double the clock speed, 32,000 possible colours. Although only 56 at any one time, it was still a massive leap from the original 4 shades of green. And did it come with a backlight? No. But it did let you play your original games, and even gave them an enhanced colour palette. Other notable pieces of Game Boy hardware is the Super Game Boy, an accessory for the Super Nintendo, which essentially is a Game Boy and a SNES cart, and it allowed playing your Game Boy games on the big screen, and it even had an enhanced colour palette, just like the Game Boy Color, yet it couldn't play Game Boy Color games. The next step for the Game Boy family was the Game Boy Advance. This quite cleverly allowed for backwards compatibility, all except the Game Boy Micro, which due to its size removed this feature. Focusing on just the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color, the games could be divided up into 3 categories. Those that were designed just for the original hardware, usually found in grey cartridges. These obviously play across the whole line of hardware. The next group, often found in black cartridges, offer enhancements for the Game Boy Color, yet still are backwards compatible with original hardware. The final category are games designed just for the Game Boy Color. These are often found in transparent cases, and instead of having a dimple where, say, the word Game Boy, would often be raised. The Game Boy is a huge success. With over 1,000 games in its library and an impressive 12-year release window, it's something I still collect for today. The more I learn about the Game Boy, the more I'm impressed by it. All the clever tricks put in place to push the hardware as far as it could are remarkable. whether it be from simple memory bank switching in the cartridges, or from clever programming techniques used to warp the images on the screen. For instance, did you know that when you turn on the Game Boy and you see that Gameboy logo, that was actually put in place by Nintendo to try and stop unlicensed games being released? For every game cartridge had to come with a copy of the data for that image, which was compared against the same data on the actual hardware, and if they don't match, the game wouldn't play. So what's stopping an unlicensed game just adding the logo in? Well, the Nintendo logo is a registered trademark, which, if they used it in the game, Nintendo could sue them for, and it was a lot easier to sue for a trademarked image than it was for software at the time. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and if you love the Game Boy as much as I do, let me know your favourite games in the comments. Please like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel.